The sun was slipping low over the Colorado plains, casting amber light across the quiet highway where Staff Sergeant Ava McConnell drove alone. Her truck, dusty from the long haul, hummed steadily beneath her as she traced the winding two-lane road toward the military K-9 compound she called home. In the back seat, two sets of intelligent eyes watched the world pass by. Kane, her Belgian Malinois, lay coiled like a spring, ever alert. Beside him, Blitz, a sleek German shepherd with ears perked and body still, tracked every shadow that danced across the windows. They weren't pets. They weren't accessories. They were soldiers, just like her. Ava had trained these dogs in war zones and walked beside them through firefights and bomb threats. After a decade in service, their bond was tighter than blood. As the last orange rays gave way to dusk, a flickering gas station sign appeared in the distance. A rusted relic from another time, its lone bulb blinked like a beacon. Ava hadn't eaten since morning, and the fuel gauge hovered just above empty. She clicked the turn signal and pulled in. It wasn't until she killed the engine that she noticed the motorcycles. 6 of them, chrome beasts lined up like a row of hungry wolves. Their owners loitered near the store entrance, men with sun-leathered skin and laughter too loud for the silence of evening. They looked like trouble not looking for any, which, in Ava's experience, was often worse. She opened the door. The air was dry and cool as she stepped out in full uniform, the stripes on her shoulder catching the neon light. She walked to the pump, card in hand, pretending not to hear the laughter that shifted as soon as she became their focus. "Well, would you look at that?" one of them said, his voice soaked in amusement. He had a bandana tied around his head and a skull tattoo curling over his neck. A soldier girl, all by her lonesome. Ava didn't flinch. She'd heard worse in Kandahar, let alone here in the States. Still, she felt the prick of their attention like needles on her skin. "Maybe she's got those dogs for protection," another added, chuckling. "Or maybe they're just decoration." She let their words fall away, eyes on the pump, heart steady. Behind her, Kane and Blitz lifted their heads. They knew. The air had changed. She finished fueling and walked toward the store. The laughter followed her like a shadow. Inside, the hum of a cooler and the smell of cheap coffee wrapped around her. She grabbed a protein bar and water, heading to the counter. Before she could pay, heavy footsteps entered behind her. Red bandana. He walked slowly, pretending to browse a rack of gum, but his eyes never left her back. "Military, huh?" he said, voice casual. "That's tough work, for someone like you." Ava said nothing, just handed the cashier her cash. She didn't reward ignorance with breath. Red bandana chuckled, louder this time. "You lucky, though. Got those dogs. Bet they do all the heavy lifting." She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "They're my team," she said evenly. "We work together." He tilted his head like a man considering a bet. "Sure, but I wonder how tough you are without them." Ava gave a small, patient smile. "You'd be surprised." She stepped past him, walked out into the cooling dusk. The others were still gathered, leaning against bikes, sipping from cans, watching her like a spectacle. One called out, "Hey, our friend didn't scare you, did he?" Ava didn't answer. She placed the bag in the truck and opened the driver's door. That was when the tattooed one, Jace, she'd later learn, made his move. He swaggered closer to the truck and reached a hand toward the back door. "Let's meet the puppies," he said. Ava didn't raise her voice. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Jace paused and grinned. "Relax, lady. What's the worst that could happen?" His fingers brushed the handle. The silence that followed was not empty. It was charged. With one soft command, Ava unleashed fury. Kane exploded against the window, a guttural growl rattling the glass. Blitz's snarl rose like thunder, sharp teeth flashing beneath intense, focused eyes. The truck became a fortress of warning and power. Jay stumbled back, pale. "Whoa. Okay. Jesus." The laughter died. Every biker stared. No one moved. Ava stepped forward, calm as ever. They don't like strangers touching their truck. The man with the gray beard, Bo, maybe, lifted both hands, chuckling nervously. All right. No harm meant. They don't understand jokes, Ava replied. Just threats. The dogs remained still, eyes locked, waiting for a signal. Ava gave a low command. Instantly, Kane sat. Blitz eased back into place. The message was clear. Respect was no longer optional. The world stood still for a moment. The only sound was the quiet hiss of fuel from the neighboring pump and the low growl, still vibrating deep in Kane's chest. Ava didn't need to look back to know Blitz's golden eyes were still locked on Jace, the biker who had dared touch the truck. They weren't barking anymore, but they hadn't relaxed, either. It was a soldier's silence. Poised. Controlled. Dangerous. The group of bikers who had been so loud, so sure of themselves just minutes earlier, had now gone silent. Bo, the one with the gray beard, rubbed his hands nervously on the sides of his jeans. Red, his laugh now gone, avoided Ava's eyes completely. Lady, Jay said, his voice lower, throat dry, those dogs are not normal. They're military, Ava replied simply. They don't like being underestimated. Neither do I. She climbed into the truck with grace and finality, as though the moment had always belonged to her. The door shut with a heavy clunk, and the hum of the engine roared back to life. For a brief second, Ava glanced in the rearview mirror. The bikers stood in a line, no longer hecklers, no longer bold. Their faces reflected something new. Respect, yes, but underneath that, something more vulnerable. Understanding. She eased the truck back onto the road and let the silence of the highway stretch around her like a warm blanket. The dogs had settled again. Kane rested his head on the seat beside her. Blitz, always the alert one, kept his eyes on the road. Ava reached out and stroked the back of Kane's neck. Good work, she whispered. You told them exactly what they needed to hear. No bark, no response. But she knew they understood. 20 miles later. The world had grown darker by the time Ava saw the flashing lights ahead. A squad car blinked red and blue at the shoulder of the road. As she approached, she saw an older couple standing beside a stalled sedan, the hood propped open. The man looked to be in his late 60s, face weathered but kind. His wife stood behind him, arms folded against the chilly wind. Ava pulled over without hesitation. She stepped out, immediately alert. The officer, standing near the car, gave her a nod. Evening, Sergeant. These folks are having a rough night. Car just died on him, and cell reception's trash out here. Ava nodded and glanced under the hood. She didn't pretend to know much about engines, but it was clear they weren't going anywhere soon. Before she could speak, the distant growl of engines cut through the silence. She knew that sound. The bikes pulled into view, headlights beaming like the eyes of wild animals in the dark. The same 6 men from the gas station rolled up slowly and parked nearby, boots crunching gravel as they stepped off their rides. The older man looked nervous. His wife moved closer to him, clutching his arm. Jay stepped forward, helmet in hand, and looked around, at the car, at the couple, at Ava. He looked different now. Smaller, perhaps. More human. You folks need a tow? He asked quietly. The older man hesitated. Yes, but we don't want to trouble you. No trouble, said Bo, stepping beside Jace. We got chains. Can tow you into the next town. Couple of us are good with engines. Ava crossed her arms. You sure about this? Bo met her eyes. Yeah, we owe someone a bit of decency tonight. The change in their tone wasn't just politeness. It was something more honest. The old man looked at Ava for reassurance. They're offering, she said. And right now, you don't have many options. The woman nodded cautiously. Thank you. Jace gave a slight nod and turned to his friends. All right, boys. Let's get to work. 15 minutes later, the sedan was hooked to the lead bike using a tow chain, reinforced with a secondary hitch rigged up from one of the bikers' toolkits. The police officer supervised silently, occasionally offering a flashlight. Ava leaned against her truck, watching it all unfold. Kane and Blitz remained still in the cab, but she could tell they were watching too. Blitz's nose twitched with every movement. Kane's ears were high and stiff. Jace approached her carefully, the same man who, not an hour ago, had dared to challenge her authority with mockery. He didn't speak at first, just stood beside her. You really don't get scared, he finally said. Ava didn't look at him. Not when I got back up like this. He gave a small chuckle, softer now, not mocking, just honest. They scared the hell out of me. I've never seen dogs like that. They're soldiers, she said. He nodded slowly, then exhaled. I was an ass. Back there. Ava finally turned to him. You were stupid. There's a difference. He grinned, sheepish. Lesson learned. She almost smiled. Almost. Good, she said. Some people don't get second chances to learn it.